So we're back with Dylan. Dylan is a volunteer at the Glen Farmhouse, a community center, just generally there to just really make Cape Town the best place it can be. There was an opportunity for local residents to sell products and services. They've also been doing competitions and other community events. Dylan, welcome back. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you very much for having me.
Perfect. Okay, so for those of us who are just tuning in now, we're on the morning cruise. And Dylan, could you just, one more time, just like 2 sentences, talk a little bit about just what the Glen Farmhouse is and like how you got involved?
Yeah, sure. Well, the Welcome Glen Farmhouse was declared a national monument in the 1960s and built in the early 1800s. Over the years, it's had many owners, including some of the early settlers, we say, in the modern age, as well as the Navy, and it's been a farm as well as many other things over the years. Of course, predating that, it's also, the Southern Cape is also known as the cradle of human culture. So beyond modern history, you also have a lot of ancient history in this area. And the local community, looking at all of this, and also seeing that the actual farmhouse itself was in need of some repairs, it started about 20 years ago that the community was eyeing this building and saying that it's got such an amazing history and such an amazing legacy to it. How can we take that and, considering that it is owned by the people through the National Heritage Council, how can they take something that was actually a bit of an eyesore and turn it into something that is an asset for the community? And over the years, many people have put in time and effort, and it has finally got to the point now where that the Welcome Glen Farmhouse is being rebirthed as a community center. And that's where the competition that you alluded to and the opportunities for the people to bring in their vegetables to potentially sell, and also further opportunities in that. So it's all about creating a community space where people can bring in their home enterprises, their ideas, where the neighborhood watch can come and have a meeting if need be. We live in a fire-rich environment. If there's a fire down in the south, it could also be a center where there could be potentially evacuations or people need to set up there. So essentially, the story behind all of it is taking the Welcome Glen Farmhouse and creating something that is so needed in our current society, a community center where we can all come together.
So for listeners who've never been, could you describe what the farmhouse is like? And sort of it's like, you've already talked a little bit about its role in the community, but like if I walked into Glen Farmhouse right now, what would I see?
Well, at the moment, it is just finishing its restoration. Over the past year or so, the local community has been working closely with the National Heritage Council to basically cut the building to a large degree. There were trees growing in walls, etc., and making it look nice and new and shiny. So if you were to walk up to it now, well, the organization hasn't yet got the final keys to go in and start everything that's about to happen, which is why all the excitement is coming. And what you'll see is a beautiful whitewashed building from the 1800s set in a stunning valley down in Simonstown, in a gem of an environment. In this area of the South Peninsula, it's surrounded by nature reserve. So there's baboons, there's buck. The people need to keep their cats inside at night because there's caracal, etc. So it is a small little community, and it is a small little community center, but what it represents is massive.
So you mentioned that it was once more of an eyesore, like in disrepair. Like, what has it taken to bring it back to life and really transform it into the community center that it is?
Well, the community started this project, I don't know, but I think it was in 1993 that the local councillors and law enforcement and everybody started to get engaged with. So the residents, and it's not just one or two, it's multiple residents over the years that have been involved. They've engaged with law enforcement, they've engaged with historical societies. And after they've done all of that, once they got the attention of these people, it is still, of course, an asset that would need to be paid for. So if the local community started using it, they would need to pay for it. So they then organized an association, and that's where all the volunteers come in. They developed the Welcome Glen Community Volunteers Association. And over the years, they started off as a sort of loose body, but then they realized that to get further, they need to get organized. So they developed an NPO. And through this, they have done a serious engagement with lots and lots of people. They've developed a business plan, and by developing that business plan, they've had to draw in community members, they've had to do fundraising, and all of this has then led to a place where literally, your neighbors, the man in the street, the lady walking her dog, those are the people that have come together and made this happen. It's not other people. It's the people in the community. And I think that's a very good story to tell. And what this does for the community is it unlocks many opportunities to improve the world around them. Having a place where people are organized can bring in very important things like a core proponents to this community center could be something like food sovereignty, which is a major thing. We all want to be free, but what about the food we eat? Don't we have a right to healthy and culturally appropriate food? And having a community center is a place where people can come together and share food, share thoughts, share ideas, share seeds. I'm sure we can all see how the price of living is not going down. And the quality of the foods that we're buying at an increased price, well, that's going down. The costs are going up and quality is going down. So places like a community center is where you can all come together and maybe go buy tons of veggies from a farmer just a little bit up the road. So it's ideas like that bring a community center to life. And also something like reverse logistics is another great example. And that's simply recycling, reusing, repurposing. So that's where the community center comes into its own in a large degree.
That sounds like it's taken a lot of work, but has also become something that's like really, really valuable, especially nowadays. So if this has been going on since 1993, you said, so how have you been able to keep the community engaged for over 20 years now? Has that just been like a sort of rising up from within the community, or have you been campaigning, or could you just tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, I certainly wasn't involved from the beginning. I've been more involved towards the end. But it really has just been the fact that there is a problem in the community, which is this building, which had broken windows and didn't look that neat and tidy, and at one stage was involved with some of the criminal elements, and it needed to be resolved. So it was the neighborhood watch members that were involved, and those changed. Well, there's one or two core members, but I would say that it was more of a movement of the community, and in some regards, the baton has been passed from one to the other. Even within the last year or so, this association has had people that have come in and out and helped and moved. So it has really been a community movement led by the community for the community. And I think a great example of that was the recent Koiki competition that we ran. I think this is a great case study for other organizations out there to see how by actually investing in your community as a part of your community, it could be better than many other things. I think a great way to create security is to create community. And with the Koiki competition, we just had a small little team that reached out to local businesses and to the community. And we got 10 teams to enter, some realtors, even the local internet provider, and some really cool guys. They create these little bribe outs, Britucks, a whole bunch of other little things out there. So it was a combination of businesses and local residents who paid a little bit of money to enter a Koiki competition. They then made those Koikis, and those Koikis were judged. And at the end of the competition, they sold those Koikis to the community they came to attend. So we essentially had 10 teams that invested a fair amount of money to come out and compete. And we made a bit of money off that, the organization did. But the reason why they came out to compete is that we went to a series of businesses, and we had probably about 30 amazing prizes for those teams. And everything was donated from the organization didn't have to pay for anything. So by reaching out to the community to say, this is the problem that we had, and this is the problem that we saw, the community really did reach in deep to say that these guys have got a plan, they see a problem, they've got a plan, let's get together. And without the concept of the community center and without bringing the community together, it would physically not be possible to do stuff like this. So the big story here is to encourage other communities to also get their own community centers going. If they've already got a community center, invest in it, because you're hearing now just how much work it can be to get one started. So if you've got one, really, that's a big asset that you've got going there.
So what are your, what does the farmhouse look like in the future?
So in the future, in the not too distant future, there will be a place where people can get a cup of coffee and maybe a cake or something there. There's the idea of somebody also baking bread. There's also going to be spaces where people can rent out consultancy rooms. Because naturally, whilst the community center is available to community free of charge, the bills still need to be paid, electricity, Wi-Fi, water, etc. So to make money, to make it free of charge, the general community businesses will be charged. So if you're a doctor or a lawyer or you're just looking for a place for a little treatment room, we've got a space for that. And we're also going to have a small little meeting area. And there's also going to be a little sort of community shop. So if you create something and you want to sell it, you could drop it off at the farmhouse. I'm not sure exactly how it's going to work, whether they're going to keep it on consignment or etc. But it's basically an opportunity in the space for small businesses and organizations to come together and work.
Okay, Dylan, so we have one more minute together. So can you tell us how our listeners can reach out to you and support both the community center and potentially other projects that in the similar sort of vein?
Yeah, sure. So we haven't got a website yet, but you can find us on facebook.com/Welcome Glen Farmhouse, or it is Welcome Glen Farmhouse @gmail.com. Yeah, so Welcome Glen Farmhouse @gmail.com or facebook.com/Welcome Glen Farmhouse.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. If you have one last sentence that you want to say to everyone, this is your chance.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'd just like to say a big thank you to everybody that has been involved in this project and to everybody else there, every volunteer. You guys are all magic. And without the volunteers of this world and all our non-profits, the country wouldn't be as wonderful as it is.